Hi, my name is Tom Antos, and today I'm going to show you guys a quick little tutorial on how to use a light reflector. This will come in handy whenever you're filming outside, you're just getting a shot of a regular subject, and when you get really harsh shadows from the sun. So here's the kind of reflector that we'll be using today. One side has this sort of a white, just surface, and then the other one is silver. Basically, the difference in that is the white, it just kind of gives you a softer, less intense light, and the silver it reflects the light, a lot stronger, and also the shadows are a little bit harder because of that. You can buy this type of a reflector, online. I got mine on eBay. It can cost, depending on the size, it can cost anywhere from like $50 to $100. And really, there's no difference I found with buying the more expensive ones, other than the fact that they will last you longer. They're just built from a stronger material. So, anyways, once you have a reflector like that, here's sort of what you can do. This is a regular shot here, just shot outside in the sunlight, and as you can see, our subject has just regular shadows like you would expect to have. Now, here I'm gonna have my assistant come in and help me, and he's going to basically put the reflector with the silver side facing our subject, and sort of angled so that the light bounces off of the sunlight bounces off of the reflector, and the light ends up falling in on her right side of her face here. So as you can see, if you were to look at how it looks before, there's quite big of a difference, because the shadows before were just really dark and intense, whereas now you kind of even out those shadows on the face. Now you'll also notice right away that our subject is squinting a lot, and that's because we just we very quickly shot this example. But that's one thing when you're shooting with reflectors. Reflectors, especially if you're using the silver side, they tend to provide a lot of really strong light. So you have to sort of set it up and then wait a few minutes. Sometimes we'll let the subjects, your actors' eyes adjust, basically, because at the beginning it is going to be very harsh for them. So either that, or just put sunglasses on your actor. But if you can't do that, then just wait a few minutes, and then eventually your actor's eyes will adjust. You can use the reflector in many different ways, just depending on basically where the sun is in relation to your subject. Here the sun is pretty much like straight above, a little bit to the right side of the camera. So the reflector we're gonna put, we can put it here on the side like we have it, or we can put it underneath up here, as you can see, and that also fills out the shadows here from the bottom. And here's how it looks again without any of that stuff in there. Now here we moved our subject so the sun is on her right side, and you can see the left side of the face is completely in shadow. And so then I'm gonna have the reflector placed, exactly, basically almost 90 degrees to our subject's left side, or to the right side of the camera, and that again just evens out those shadows a bit more, makes it less noticeable. So this is how it looks with the silver, and then if you put use the white side of the reflector, which again, like I said, it just makes the light a bit softer. Here's how it looks, and also it's less intense, so it's kind of easier for the actor. Again, you can place it underneath. Sometimes it depends, which kind of shadows you want to get rid of. Now you do have to be careful when you're placing the reflector underneath the actor, because sometimes you can create, especially like I wouldn't recommend using the silver side when you're putting the reflector completely underneath, to kind of brighten up those shadows under the nose and stuff, because the silver side is so strong that it will end up creating actually extra shadows above your actor's cheek and stuff like that, and it kind of just looks like you have this strong light lighting your subject from the bottom, which just looks kind of weird when you're outside in a daylight situation. So here we move the subject again, and we're actually completely, the sun is almost completely behind our subject. So the whole, face, as you can see of her, is in the shadow. And when you place the reflector up here, see from the side, that also works, but it ends up basically sort of creating a shadow on her right side of the face, which, if this is the kind of look you're going for, it's great. But if you want to just get as much of this sort of even light on your actor's face, then it's best to come almost like completely in front of her without having your reflector visible in the shot. So up here I have the reflector moved basically right in front of her, and then just to the right side here of the camera, so we don't see it too much. And then here once again I'm going to show you how it looks when you put the reflector underneath. And here's those kind of shadows that I was talking about, where it just looks very, very harsh and almost unnatural, because you wouldn't expect this kind of lighting during the day. And I see many people do that when they're filming outside and they're using reflectors. And I don't recommend putting again, especially if you're using a very reflective side like the silver, or some reflectors have like this golden kind of a side to them. I wouldn't recommend using that directly underneath, because it's just going to create extra shadows, which can actually sometimes backfire and make your subject look even worse. Another thing actually I wanted to mention is that there are different kind of reflectors. Some will have a silver, some will have gold, side. Some have even sort of different tints of colors. And really, all that it does is that it just kind of gives you a slight color to the light that is reflecting. But I find in my use that like 99% of the time I just prefer having just straight and neutral kind of white light that it reflects. So I prefer having a silver and then a white side, and that's it. And if I ever really need to add some kind of warmth, or something, then I can always do that by adjusting my white balance in my camera. So I wouldn't really bother, buying or spending money on one reflector that's silver and one that's gold. And so anyways, here's how this finished shot looks, and again, this is how it looked before without the reflector. So as you can see, reflectors can make a big difference. Sort of a pain in the ass with them is that you have to have somebody holding the reflector for you, and also if it's a really windy day, you won't be able to really use it sometimes, because the reflector will probably end up sort of shaking and moving, and that actually makes it look like there's a moving light, on your subject, so that can kind of make the shot kind of distracting. But if it's just a nice sunny day, then yeah, it's a good thing to use. Many people ask me, so how do you really how do you know where to place the reflector in relation to your subject? And kind of, I mean, there are no rules, but kind of, my sort of rule or guide that I go by whenever I start, so with the reflector, is that I usually place it on the exact opposite side of the subject as the sun is. So, for example, in this case, the sun is behind a little bit to the left of our subject, and the reflector I would first place it right in front, a little bit to the right, and that from there I'll just kind of fine tune its position and the angle. But that's kind of where I started off. Or in this example here, where the sun is to the left, I'll basically first start off by having our reflector exactly on the opposite side, which we do here to the right side of the camera, and again, so it's sort of like almost, you could say, 180 degrees, on the opposite side. So that's sort of where I start, and then once again I'll sort of adjust its position and the angle once I have it there. But that's just, as I would say, a good starting point. Another thing I get asked also is that is it important to have a really big reflector? For most situations, no. Like you can see the reflector that we're using here, it's around 50 inches, I believe, and that is good for most situations. Now, if you want to get like a full body shot, or a shot of maybe 2 or 3 people, then you might want to get something even bigger. But like I said, that rarely happens, especially since when you're getting a full body shot, that means that you're so far away from the subject's face that you don't really care about having those shadows filled in and stuff, because it's sort of, you're looking at the overall exposure of the shot, and the face of your subject isn't the main element in it. So really, I mean, you're really gonna end up using the reflector in kind of a medium to tight shots, when you're looking at the face. So yeah, so the size again doesn't matter, but if you can afford it, it's a good option to have another extra large sort of reflector that once again, if you don't mind taking it with you, because it is does take up extra space. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Stay tuned for future videos on my channel here by subscribing, so you can automatically get a notification in your email when I upload the new tutorials. And next one I'm going to upload will be about sort of lighting tips outside at night, and sort of, you know, what are your options on a you know, minimum to low budget. And I'm going to use an example that I did, for example, in this music video with Jay Rice. And then after that, I'm going to have another really cool tutorial about just getting really nice, you know, outside landscape kind of shots. So stay tuned for that. So you know, subscribe, rate, and comment. And thank you guys.